guys. I'm talking about heavy support. First up is the battle wagon, and it's 90 points. The battle wagon's actually pretty sweet. You can kind of run it like, crazy shooting, or just as a transport. It's up to you. I usually keep it cheap because it's already 90 points. But you could, it has so many options. You can kind of build it the way you want, which is awesome. It is open top though, so you want to probably make sure it's hard cased if you bring it. Otherwise, even though it's a 14 in the front, I'd probably do it anyway just to make sure it's upgraded, so it doesn't die as fast. But other than that, you can pretty much run it whatever way you want. I usually you can take a single big gun as a cannon, lava, or zap gun. Cannon's 10 points, lava's 15, zap gun's 15. I probably would take a zap gun because it doesn't include the crew, so if you're higher than a 10, you're not going to lose a guy. And because those are normally Gretchen that fire that. May take up to 4 of the following: big shooters for 5 points, or rocket launchers for 10. It depends on, I think, on how who you play. If you're playing like a bunch of another orc, army or something with crazy infantry, you probably want to take some big shooters. If you're taking if you're fighting on maybe crazy, we'll say like dreadnoughts and stuff, maybe rockets, you can take up to 4 of them too. So if you don't really know, you can take like 2 and 2. That might work. Like I said, you can you can use it as a transport, which is sweet. 20 models unless you're using megas, which are 2 apiece. I usually, if I bring the battle wagon, I usually use it as a transport for megas, just so I know that my megas will, pretty much get there. But also you can use them, as anything really. You can put 20 boys in it. You could bring even just knobs. You throw in knobs and bring them up, throw them up. It's up to you. Next up is the Death Dread for 75 points. Death Dread's good in my opinion, but I think he's quite expensive considering you can field 2 killicans for 1 Death Dread. He does have 2 more weapon skill and 1 more attack and 1 plus on front and side armor. He's really good at close combat, but I just feel like killicans might be better in the point sense that you get more of them. But anyway, Death Dread must take 2 of the following: a big shooter for 5 points, a rocket launcher for 10, a custom mega blaster for 15, a scorcher for 5, or a dreadnought close combat weapon for 5. I probably would at least I always would give him a scorcher, because you want to end in close combat. So if you're moving up and you can flame some guys before you get there. But if you do get like immobilized, you probably want to have a backup gun, maybe like whatever you really want. Rocket launcher might be decent, or a big shooter. But if you don't want to do that, I'd probably just bring 2 scorches. That's pretty good. A dreadnought, close combat weapon. He already has 3 attacks for 15 points. You could make him crazy in close combat, but to have 4, but because it gives you 1 plus attack. But I just feel this 15 points, and he already has 3. You don't really need it. You take any of the following. You take Grod Riggers or Armor Plates. Grod Riggers are 5 points, Armor Plates are 10. I'd probably take both, just so it's more survivable. Next up are killicans. They're 35 points a model. You can have 1 to 3. And basically like a smaller Death Dread. Each killican must take 1 of the following: big shooter for 5, rocket launcher for 15, custom mega blaster for 20, scorcher for 5, Grotzuka for 10. You can kind of run this again, whatever you're fighting, or you can even have a variety. You can have 1 guy have a big shooter, 1 guy have a custom mega blaster or scorcher. You can run them all with scorches or big shooters. I probably would just run them like maybe 2 with scorches and maybe 1 with a rocket. And these guys, actually, they have ballistic skill 3, so they are 1 plus better than the usual. So I guess you could make these guys more shooty if you really wanted. You can actually probably hit something with them. But they're better at close combat. So you probably want to get them. You could run them anyway, but I'd probably run them mostly close combat oriented. And may take any of the following: Grot Riggers for 5 points, Armor Plates for 10. I'd probably take, again, both, just so that they're more survivable. They get there, they'll hit, more chances of them actually surviving. Alright, next over, Flash Kits for 25 points a model. You take 5 to 10 of these guys in a squad. They have heavy armor, Snaz gun and get finders. When you first look at flash kits, you're like 25 points for an orc. It's pretty expensive, but then again, they are knobs. That's 20 points right there, and they come with heavy armor, so that's 5. So really, you know, they are what you should whatever, like, they are 25 points, so you should be paying that amount. What's cool about these guys is Snaz gun's pretty good. It's actually really cool. I mean, it's kind of random because the AP is always different, but the thing is the problem is it's only 24 inches. But the cool thing is with the get find is you get to at least measure before you declare what unit you're shooting. So they are pretty sweet in that respect. As the enemy comes, you know, closer to you, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to shoot rather than just kind of hopefully being in that distance. You can kind of run them. You know, they are, like I said, kind of expensive, but you can make them more expensive if you want them to be better. You can take more DACA for 5 points, Shooter for 5 points, Blasters for 5 points. If you're trying to make them cheap, I'd probably just take more DACA so you have one more shot, and maybe just give them a Pain Boy, you know, for 30, so they at least get Feel No Pain. But I usually bring everything. I mean, if I bring these guys, I usually make them so they last. I usually give them more DACA, Shooter, Blasta, and then I give them a Pain Boy with Cyborg Bodies. I mean, that's a real expensive unit, the way I bring them, but I kind of like, you know, I want to make sure they survive. That's why I bring them that way. You can also take Captain Badruck, which is kind of sweet because he's a character, but he's not an H2 unit. It's up to you. I mean, he's expensive. He's 135 points, but you know, if you like him, I think he's cool. Next up are big guns. They're 20 points a model. You can bring 1-3, but you have to bring the same type of gun. You can't bring, like, you know, one has a cannon, one has a zap gun. I know I didn't really like Gretchen, but big guns I think are sweet. They're cheap, and I mean I like the zap gun for 10 points a model. 3 zap guns actually are pretty sweet, and I think are actually really strong. Even though their strength's kind of random, it's still, you know, really crazy. You can do some crazy stuff with that. You can take up to 3 ammo runs for 3 points a model, and 3 additional Grot Crew for 3 points a model. Again, these are actually not bad choices. I mean, the additional Grot Crew, I would probably bring at least, you know, maybe one more guy. Just so if one dies, you at least have one more guy that, you know, or you get an additional guy. And ammo runs aren't bad, so you get to, you know, re-roll it. And you're going to be hitting on 4s, you know, shooting on 4s, like, to hit. So, it's not bad either. At least you have a better chance of hitting stuff in a longer, you know, if you bring additional guys, you have a better chance of surviving. You can also bring a Runther for 10 points or a Grod Pod for 5. It's up to you. I probably would just stick. I wouldn't really do it, but you could, I guess. I wouldn't really bother, though. And Looted Wagon's the last thing. There's 35 points. It is open topped. It's, you know, 11 in the front and side and 10 in the rear. It got, may take one of the following: a Boom Gun for 70 or Scorcher for 15. I think the Boom Gun's real expensive. I mean, it's 70 points. That's crazy expensive. But I mean, I guess if I brought it, I'd probably give it the Boom Gun, and I would just leave it in the back, you know, with maybe like a big mech that has a custom force field, so it actually has a harder time. They have a harder time killing it. And I mean, your ballistic skill is only 2 though, so you're not going to be hitting on much unless you actually roll in the artillery and do well. You take a Scorcher for 15, or you have to take 2, or may take up 2 of the following: a big shooter for 5, or a rocket launcher for 10. Again, it's up to you. I mean, I normally don't. I think they're sweet, but I just don't bring them because I just think they're. I mean, if I bring them, I give them the Boom Gun, and I keep them back with the big mech, like I said. But I think that's too expensive. You can also take any of the following. I mean, there's like ARG cases, you know, red paint jobs, Grot Riggers, stick bombs, armor plates, boarding planks, wrecking ball, reinforced ram, grab and claw. Again, it's kind of up to you how you want to run it, but I don't know. There's not that they're bad because you can transport guys. It's just I don't know. I just don't really bother. Alright, that's it.